Hello and welcome. We're so excited that you're joining us for our Facebook Live event to talk about navigating the holidays. For those of us who've been on a journey with a loved one battling addiction, we know just how difficult the holidays can be. We watch our other family and friends, and they seem to be having such great get-togethers and so many fun memories being made. And here we are, depressed and wishing that the holiday could just be over with. So we want to try to tackle that issue today and just address some of those things that come up around the holidays and maybe come up with some different ideas. So before we get started, though, we wanted to get an idea of where you're joining us from. So if you could let us know on the comment line your city and your state, that would be great. And our format today is going to be a Q&A, and we're going to tackle some questions that have come in over the last week to our Facebook page. We're also going to entertain questions that are coming in live, as many as we can get to. So we will do that as well. We want to welcome you also to join us and follow us on Facebook if you so desire. If you do that, please make sure you turn on your notifications on either your laptop, desktop, or your cell phone. So I'm going to go ahead and let our other guests introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started. Ron?
Thank you, Michelle. My name is Ron Paterik, and I am a licensed substance abuse counselor here in the Phoenix metro area. I've been in practice for a lot longer than I probably care to remember, 25 plus years. I do a lot of work with individuals as well as with families, couples. And the way that I became exposed to PAL was through meeting Kim and Michelle when they were walking through some difficult times in their life, and was really impressed with the work that PAL was providing, the support, and since then have gotten far more involved helping with blog writing and other advisory matters. Anyway, I'm excited to be here, and it's a topic that hits home every year for me and my family because we do have an addicted loved one in our home, and so we deal with this pretty much on a yearly basis.
Okay. Sean?
My name is Sean Humphrey. I am a person in long-term recovery from drug addiction, and I'm just here today to offer my perspective kind of on any questions you guys might have or any responses these guys might have. Michelle is actually my mom, so we've been through quite a bit over the past, or over the years throughout this whole journey together. So PAL was a big part of the recovery process for my parents and to myself as well through that. I struggled with opioid addiction as well as stimulants and various other things for about 12 years consistently. And I work in the recovery field now as well. So I am exposed very regularly to family members and people who are struggling with someone who is active in their addiction. So I kind of see this on the front line almost on a daily basis. So hopefully I might have some insight into any of that too, or some practical applications of things we can do to work through some of this stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, guys. And I'm Michelle Humphrey, and my husband Kim and I have been facilitating a PAL meeting for 7.5 years now. We've been on a journey for over 16 years with both of our adult sons, Sean and his brother Andrew. So we definitely have been there with you, and we will never forget those days of what that was like when they were both, I call it marinating in their disease. So we're going to just jump in, and our first question is, what recommendations do you have for getting out of our old holiday habits and traditions to minimize the impact of a loved one in active addiction who is not with you? And I want to start with Ron and see what your ideas are.
That's kind of a big question.
It is.
Yeah, and not easy to answer. One of the things I would probably say right up front as a disclaimer is that I don't believe that there's an answer that's a one-size-fits-all. Every situation is going to be unique, and everybody's story is slightly different. So when I do make recommendations, they're usually guidelines. They're ways to kind of help you find kind of what true north is for you. I think it's really important that you recognize up front that things aren't going to be the same this year for the holidays. And rather than denying that, rather than, kind of tap dancing around that and trying to create the same old holiday routines, it's, I think, better for everyone to just say, no, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
There's going to be some sadness and sense of loss. And I encourage people to acknowledge that, accept that, but not focus on that.
Mm.
So what can we do that would be different this year? And it may be, a big difference, like literally shutting down Christmas at home and having it somewhere else. I think I know somebody who did that at some point.
Yes.
Or it could be small changes, just changing up where, the location, somebody else's house, or somebody else hosts the dinner, or maybe introducing a tradition or a experience that you've always thought would be really cool to do or to have, but never took the opportunity. This would be the opportunity to introduce something different.
Great. I love it. Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Sean, what do you think?
That's a great answer, Ron. Yeah. I would say kind of along the same lines of just, like internalize the fact that, it's probably not going to be that same feeling that you've always had as, or nostalgia kind of might get you a little down, reminiscing or wanting things to be like they normally would. But for me, at least, something that's always, this is kind of broad, but has worked really well for me in my path or journey on this, is when I'm struggling, is to just really try to get outside of myself. And I think one of the best ways you can do that is to try to help someone else, or get into some type of action or service. Whether that's working with the homeless over the holidays, or I think my mom did that one year, like serving Thanksgiving, anything to that effect, or maybe, hosting some people at your house who are less fortunate or who don't have the means or the resources to kind of have a big, holiday celebration. So I know, just in generally speaking, that's been super helpful for me, is trying to just put myself out there to see, maybe not focus so much on myself or what I can get out of the situation, but what can I do for somebody else, basically. And, that's really been helpful for me, in my own path. And I think that could be really helpful for a lot of people too, just to take that focus off of, oh gosh, this isn't the same without all my family here. And, I think a lot of people would be, pretty pleasantly surprised at the feelings you get and the validation you get through that is excellent, especially at helping you to kind of minimize those negative feelings or focusing on the negative stuff. So
I just am in amazement that I'm hearing this from my son today, because what happened to Kim and I is exactly what Sean is suggesting. We had to shift our focus with the help of a good counselor who suggested maybe we do what Sean is suggesting, and that is take the focus off of ourselves and try to help other people. So for about 5 years, I believe, when we were so sad at the holidays, we did go to a men's sober living house, and we, especially Thanksgiving, we went there. We actually had some other pal parents team up with us. We prepared food, and then we went and we not only served the food to the guys that were there, we took the time to sit down and eat with them. And that was probably the most valuable part for us, sitting and socializing with men who were in recovery, who were very much just the epitome of hope and the idea that people can get better, even when your son or daughter is not getting better. So that was hugely helpful for us. The first couple years, we kind of wallowed in self-pity, and that got us nowhere. So when we reached out and tried to help other people, that was very helpful.
Yeah.
The other thing that helped us that was suggested was focusing on gratitude and the things that were going well, and instead of putting the spotlight on all of the negative things. So from my perspective as a mom of 2 sons that I did not get to see for the holidays for quite a few years, that was what we did. It was still hard. I don't want to minimize that that solved it, but it did help. So I hope that helps some of you. Our next question is, how do you set personal boundaries with other family members who don't want to speak to the addicted loved one, but you would like to have your loved one attend the holiday meal? So I'll go first on this one, and then we'll toss it out there, because this is really a great question and a very difficult question for parents at the holidays. And one of the things that I had to come to terms with was that as long as my sons were caught up in their disease and living it out, it really wasn't going to be the nostalgic holiday family meal that I remembered from our past, and that it was going to be full of drama or somebody not showing up at all. And I had to let go of that. So for me, this question is really a great one, because I felt like in my journey that until my sons were embracing recovery and sobriety, there just weren't going to be any of those holiday meals that I remembered from our past, and they were going to look different. So the boundaries in my journey and Kim's were not really with our family members. Yeah. It was actually with our 2 sons, who we assured that we loved them, but that until they were embracing sobriety and recovery, we were going to just look forward to those meals being a part of our future instead of happening right now. So I hope that helps somebody. I know it's really hard to not invite your loved one, but that was the position that we took. Yeah. And I'd like to hear what Ron has to say. Yeah,
I think that's one of the toughest problems that parents especially face, because you have so many dynamics. You've got siblings that maybe are or are not talking to the addicted loved one, that want to be in the same room or don't want to be in the same room with that person. Yet you want to, as a parent, include them in the family some way, acknowledge them. And the bottom line is you have to come to terms with the fact that you cannot please everybody, and you won't. You will not please everyone. And I think the mistake that we tend to make is organizing our lives around the addiction. And so this is an opportunity again to do something different, break out of that cycle. And so my advice is, as hard as it is, until there's been healing and reconciliation, until there's been sobriety, that you do not invite the addicted loved one to the family celebration, whatever it is, and make it clear that why, and also make it clear that we will have these celebrations in the future, like you said, when you found some healing in your life and when we've been able to, as a family, do some healing. Meeting at Christmas is not the time to have a family therapy session.
I agree.
It will never work. It will always go bad.
Right.
And so you want to avoid that at all costs.
And I remember one thing that helped me is just remembering that the holiday is just one day.
It is.
And you can get through a 24-hour period. So, Sean, what do you think?
That's a really hard question, and I'd kind of just parrot, what you guys had said. If somebody is still actively using or struggling, they probably shouldn't be invited in the first place, just because of the drama and the chaos that can kind of ensue from that type of situation. And as well as, sticking with your boundaries and sticking with that, regardless of if it's Christmas or, any regular day. And when it comes to like a situation like that's kind of just what I would defer to, is just to avoid the confrontation that would possibly arise from having someone there who may not be healthy, with family members who actively don't want to speak with that person. Just sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. So I don't know how you'd go about doing that other than avoiding that situation altogether entirely. So that would be kind of my perspective of that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Good. So our next question is, we're trying to figure out how to cope through the holidays with our younger children whose older sister is missing because of her addiction. And I'm going to just defer to Ron, because that's a great question for parents who are struggling with younger kids.
Again, there's just so many different reactions. Each child may be reacting differently to the situation. And I think as parents, the one thing you want to do is take the lead as far as establishing some open communication. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the elephant in the room that's not going to be in the room at Christmas.
Right.
And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel some grief or loss, or to be angry. Like, why is my sister or brother doing this to our family? This isn't fair. And I think having those conversations in advance just helps so much. And then as parents, kind of helping guide the focus, like we talked about earlier, onto what's important. You know, and who is going to be there, and how can we make this special for one another and for those that are coming into our home, that type of thing. The other thing is change it up, like we started with, literally do something different so that it's a new experience for everybody, and we're not comparing it to, well, we didn't do it like this last year, and this feels sad, or this feels different. Just change it up completely.
Right. So, that's a great point. Great point. Do you have anything to add to that? That was hard for me because we didn't have younger kids at the time. But
I would say it just kind of in general with something like this is, I know that when I could only imagine, like, putting myself in the shoes of someone, where you have a family member missing or who's passed away or whatever the case may be. It can be really difficult to, like, that can be like the singular focus in your mind, I guess. And I know what that feels like, to kind of like obsess or to have this just like constant rumination over like, oh, what are we going to do? Or, where are they? Are they okay? Are they alive? Are they dead? And really my best suggestion, and it always kind of comes back to this, is just what are you doing for self-care and healing for yourself? Because those are the only things that are going to carry you through that. And it's like Ron was saying, it's okay to feel your feelings, it's okay to have pain, and but if you're just constantly suffering and constantly going through this, then I think asking for help and receiving some outside help, whether that's therapeutic or from a doctor or support groups like PAL or other church, whatever the case may be, is working on yourself, exercise, diet, and all those things. And trying to just focus on the things you do have and how you can enrich those and enrich the lives of others through your own work on yourself. So I know that's not like an easy answer, it's just to like pull up your bootstraps type of thing, but it's not, because
as parents, we don't feel like we should actually enjoy life as long as our child. So it is a very big mind shift.
It is.
But we get where you're
and that's where the outside help comes in, is that a lot of times, we think for whatever reason we have to figure this out on our own, or that nobody else is going through this, but the fact of the matter is that thousands of other people have gone through the same thing, are going through the same thing, and they can help you through that and make those first steps. So,
good.
Yeah.
Good. We have several other questions, but I think we'll take one of our live questions. And I think this is for Ron. It says, from North Carolina, how do I deal with the holidays? I lost my 21-year-old son to addiction 2 years ago.
The holidays are just brutal, as you know, for anyone who's lost a child or a loved one. And especially, the first or second time around, without that person being there, it just evokes so many different feelings and so many different emotions and thoughts and memories. And there, again, this is one that's a classic. There's no easy answer. There's no one answer that fits every situation. Certainly, I would hope that if you lost a loved one to an addiction, that you found some support for yourself in advance of the holidays, whether it's other family or whether it's a PAL group or whether it's getting connected with a therapist, because there's just a lot of deep grieving that takes place in those situations, whether it's a sense of guilt or whether it's a sense of confusion. And, there can be a real spiritual crisis that accompanies all of this.
Right.
So, I mean, it's complicated to the max. So I think, again, the one thing that's important is that you don't isolate yourself as much as you might be tempted to. You don't have to do full-blown Christmas. Somewhere in the middle of all of that is probably the sweet spot for you. Surrounding yourself with a couple key friends or family members, I would say, is the most important thing. And just understanding that it's not going to be an easy journey through that period. But you will get through it. You will get through it. Each time we go through that, if we do it well, we find some additional healing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, Ron just reminds me that, with what you're saying, as parents and dealing with codependency, our disease is running parallel. So it's important to do the self-care to, make sure you focus on those things. So thank you so much. So we have a question for Sean. And it is a very good question. How did you feel when you were left out of the celebrations?
Yeah, Sean, how did you
Good question.
To be honest with you, there's a couple of different answers to this question. I mean, at times, I was so far gone or just obliterated that it probably mattered little to me, just because I didn't really, I'm so in my addiction disease that it wasn't, my last concern was like a holiday celebration, as sad as that sounds, just as far as that addictive process, like taking over, your thought process, and the pursuit of, staying intoxicated was just more important to me, than getting together with other people. And that's kind of the insidious nature, of addiction. But I will say, there were times that I was sad and upset and felt left out or felt ostracized, but that was vital, to me, to have those feelings and to experience that pain and to experience that sense of kind of loss or sadness, if you will, to get me to a place where I actually cared, if that makes any sense. It's like hitting rock bottom. That just helped me get to that place faster. So yeah, I mean, like I said, there was times where it probably, I wasn't even thinking about it, but the times, especially earlier on, like in my addiction, when it wasn't as dark as towards the end, that I was upset. Yeah, I was. But like I said, that was, in hindsight, I didn't feel this at the time. I felt, kind of left out, like you said, but I can look back and see that as an integral part of that healing process of just getting to a place where I'm like, I don't want to be left out of things. I don't want to be, the black sheep or whatever the case may be. And it was a big turning point for me, I guess you could say, having that experience and feeling those feelings and getting to a place where I didn't want to be, left out like that. So,
So
yeah.
Sean, I'm curious, did you ever feel like it was unfair? And that your parents were being mean or unfeeling?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because it's like, I don't, when I was in that mindset, or when I was like actively struggling so hard, I had all these, it manifested as all this like kind of nasty or bad behavior. And, I had no second thoughts about, hurting other people's feelings or treating other people unfairly. But when I was treated unfairly, or I felt like there was some injustice against me, the world was ending. So yeah, I felt like it was unfair, and I felt like it sucked, and then I remember lots of times I'd call my mom up and be like, what you're doing, like, is not working. Like, it's not helping me.
That was his favorite line.
That was like my favorite thing to say. Like, well, it doesn't help.
It's not working.
It doesn't help. And
Whatever advice you're getting, it just sucks.
yeah. But in the end, I'm just so glad that they did stick to that. And they did, regardless of what I had to say or whatever the case may have been. is that they stuck to their guns with that, and they didn't budge on those boundaries they firmly set. And as much as I thought that it didn't work, I feel like I'm living proof that it does. It helps. It really helped me. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that this program, PALS in particular, along with 12-step programs and other things, saved my life, so, and saved my parents' life.
Yes,
So I want to
for sure.
piggyback on that and
Yeah.
remind people that consequences do work.
They do.
They may
Yeah.
not immediately show results, but if you stay consistent over a period of time, firm with your
Right.
consequences, with your boundaries, they do make a difference.
Right, right. And I remember Sean telling Kim one holiday, Dad, I really feel like you're abandoning me. And I remember
We were
as a
playing the guilt
mother,
card.
yes, as a mother and a father, we felt like that's like the absolute last thing we want to do is
Yeah.
for our kids to feel abandoned. And I remember Kim telling Sean, I will never abandon you. I am always going to be here for you when you're ready for sobriety and recovery. Until then, I'm going to be praying. I'll be with you in spirit. But I will never abandon you. So hopefully that helps some of you as you're dealing with these things. So let's move on. We've got a few other questions here. And I love this one because this was very true in our life. Why is it that the holidays seem to bring out the worst problems? There's always a crisis. It seems like my loved one's timing always affects the holiday. Ron, what do you think? Because that is true, according to my
I've
records.
literally got on my own personal notes timing that the addicted loved ones, they just have a knack for acting out at just the wrong time. And it's usually some kind of family gathering and some kind of, holiday or birthday, that type of thing. Why do I think that happens? Oh, there's probably all sorts of Freudian explanations. Some maybe are valid, I don't know. One of the things I think, because people ask me as a therapist, they'll go, so do you see a real uptick in your business during the holidays? And I go, I don't know if it's an uptick in business, but there's an intensity. It just ratchets up.
Yeah.
And I really believe, I was thinking about this as I was driving over, actually, that we have a really beautiful way of just kind of putting things off, problems that are going on in the home, in the marriage, in the family, with our kids, putting it off, and avoiding or denying, just flat out denying, not just avoiding. And everybody suddenly is brought together for the holidays, and they're supposed to act happy and get along with each other and act as if there are no problems that have been accumulating or losses that have occurred. And the holidays and birthdays and special times like that have a way of just stripping that off. And suddenly all that raw emotion is there for everybody to see.
I agree. I agree.
And then we just get so caught off guard, which is silly. We should, we should actually expect that this is going to happen, which is part of the message today. Think this through, understand what is likely to happen if you're not more thoughtful and proactive about how you approach the holidays.
Right. Okay, so we're going to jump back in and discuss, should I give my addicted loved one a present at the holidays? And so I was just sharing a little bit of my experience as a mom. I could not bear the thought of not giving my sons a gift at the holidays. And it took a little bit of work in a counseling office to figure out why. And I'll just share with you, I had tied love into gift giving and love into money. And my younger son, who's not with us today, actually told me that once, that if you're not giving me anything, then you don't love me. So I had that in my head. And I just didn't know there were other alternatives to an actual physical gift. Words of encouragement, praying, just being there with them in spirit, even though I wasn't presenting a gift. So it was hard for me, and it was just a difficult time. And it was a difficult time, I think, for them as well, because they had expectations, and that I had kind of taught them growing up.
Yep.
So what do you think about that, Ron, and the gift giving idea?
Again, it's just one of those miserable moments as a parent, and I think what your story would probably be repeated countless times over.
Right.
But I think in general, gift giving is probably not a good idea. Staying firm with your boundaries is actually a better gift, even though the addict doesn't think so at the time.
Yeah.
But long term, it's a better gift. I think another thing is the giving that you might normally do for that child. Why not do that for someone else?
That's a great idea.
Find somebody else that's needy. Find somebody else that is wanting to see change in their life, and find a way to come alongside and help and support them. And then the last thought I have on that is the best gift that you can ever give your kids is taking care of yourself and doing your own difficult work of, really growing and deepening in your faith and breaking the negative and destructive cycles in your own life with codependency or your own addictions or whatever it might be. So we like to focus on the addict because it kind of gets the focus off of us. And I think, give yourself a gift, give your family a gift, give the addict a gift by working on yourself.
That's a great suggestion. I remember the first time I heard that suggestion prior to any PAL education. I just thought, these people are insane. They want me to have self-care and all of this when my two sons are out and they're homeless.
Yeah, right.
And it took me a while and working on that to change that mind shift, to see how that might be a gift to them.
Yeah, long term.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you guys said, and it does kind of suck at the time, feeling that I'm not getting anything for Christmas or whatever the case may be. But again, I would just take it back to, in the long run, it's like Ryan said, that's the most healthy gift you could possibly give them, because material things, money, all of that, that's going to go straight into their arm, or up their nose, or in a glass or whatever. It's just that's the fact of the matter. Any kind of anything with value, if you're in a position where you're actively using drugs or alcohol, is going to go ultimately towards feeding that, like I said before. So that could actually be helpful to think of it in that terms. It's like, I want to pay their bill for them, or I want to give them this cash gift, or I'll give them a gift card. And it's just like, it doesn't matter if it's a gift card, if it's cash or whatever. Like, there's a way
They can convert it.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what it's going to go to. So that can be a helpful way of looking at it. Is this, you could be helping them get drugs or more, alcohol or whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, obviously that's not something we want to be doing at all. So, so yeah.
There was another part to this question that we should address, and I'll give it to you, Ron. It says, should I even reach out to them at the holidays? Let alone give them a gift, but should I reach out?
Again, it would depend on the situation. If you have already established a boundary of no communication, other than let me know when you check yourself into, a hospital or whatever, if you've already set that boundary, then I would say no.
Okay.
You don't reach out. You stay consistent. You stay firm, even as difficult as it is, remembering that these are the kinds of consequences that do eventually make a difference.
Right.
If you are already in communication with that child or have been, then that's a different story, and so reaching out might be more kind of consistent with what you're doing.
Right.
So I think it just depends what kind of boundaries, what parameters you've already established.
Right. Very good. I know that for myself, Kim and I battled this reaching out thing, because in retrospect, now that I look back on it, my reaching out with a text or a phone call, it really was just bait.
Yes.
Honestly, I was trying to find out what was going on.
You wanted to know if they were
I did.
okay.
I wanted
Yeah.
to know if they were alive. I wanted to, so
It was more for you.
It really
in a way.
was. I had to come to terms with that a lot of what I was doing was for my own codependency issues. So great.
I think,
question.
what I would add to that, Michelle, is that if you are going to reach out, that's dangerous. That's dicey. There's a risk there. And the other thing I would say is if you're married and you're thinking of reaching out and not telling your spouse, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Please
Right.
don't do that.
Yeah.
It needs to be something that both of you agree, yes, we're going to reach out and this is what we are going to say. Okay, or this is, again, establish the boundaries. So
Right.
Anyway.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being on the other end of that, Sean, did it ever help when we reached out? I mean, maybe that would be.
Yeah, I can't, say exactly. I mean, I think that sometimes, I don't want to give the impression that you should be doing that. It can be nice to know people are thinking about you, but the problem is that when you're so deep down in the middle of it, you're just not thinking about those types of things or how you might be affecting others. And, one of the classic things we hear people say when they're, drug addicts or alcoholics is like, oh, I'm just hurting myself. I'm not hurting anyone else. So it's just like the most false
Right.
statement of all time. Like you're destroying the lives of everyone around you. You're a boon upon society. I mean, everything. It's just you're creating destruction everywhere. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing it either. You're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment. It's just best to stick with your guns and to stick with your program and what works.
Thank you.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Good. So we have a couple questions that have come in for you. So
Okay.
you're on the spot here. So deep down, Sean, did you realize it was your fault or did you fully blame your parents?
So my addiction,
Yes.
or I don't think I ever blamed anybody for that. I think I wouldn't even necessarily say it was my fault. I think it's a disease, first and foremost. And I think that for whatever reason, some people are just born with it. And I don't think anything happened to me. I had a great childhood. I grew up with a loving family, grew up in church, we never wanted, for anything really. We weren't like super rich, but we weren't broke or struggling. So there was nothing, from a trauma, I guess like a physical trauma standpoint that triggered this or anything like that. I just remember as far back as I can remember just not being okay kind of with myself internally. So there were times where I kind of tried to maybe subconsciously, I would blame other people or circumstances on why I was the way I was. But I think deep down, I've always known that there's no one really at fault. Like I had to take responsibility for myself and my behaviors and the ways I was acting out eventually. But, when you're in the middle of it, you're really not able to have that clarity or to do those things.
Right.
So
I wish we weren't almost out of time.
I know, yeah. There's, I could say a lot about
If
that.
you could address this last question, and then I want Ron to kind of wrap us up. Sean, what kind of help have you received?
You name it.
Somebody's
Everything from no help to all different kinds. If you're talking about like therapeutic or what I've done to maintain sobriety and be in recovery. Treatment. I've done 30-day programs. I did a long-term program in Prescott when I eventually got sober this last time.
What do you do daily?
Sure. Yeah. So ongoing, I've done therapy, like counseling. I've seen a psychiatrist. I've put an emphasis on physical fitness, nutrition, 12-step, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all those things, participating in support groups. Most importantly, just not trying to do it by myself. That's, I guess you could say, is reaching out, getting help from professionals, from peers in the community, and that has what's kept me and helped me stay. And in turn, trying to give those things back and help other people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ron, do you have anything in closing?
Well, we've talked a lot about things that we need to do or not do, and it can sound like a real struggle and kind of gloomy, and there is an element to that. Can't deny that. But what I want you also to keep in mind is that the holidays actually can have meaning and be just maybe in some different ways satisfying and worth the effort. Focusing on those people around you that are there with you, that love you, that you can love. Giving outside of yourself is another way that I think it really helps kind of reset us and allow us to actually, if possible, to enjoy the holidays. So I think, those are things to kind of keep in mind. And don't feel like it's selfish to create what I call some little islands of joyfulness. Okay, they may be very small, but baking your favorite cookies and sitting down and having it with your favorite drink, and just little things like that, or scheduling a time to go to a concert with a friend, and just little islands of joy that allow you to remember that there's more going on in your life than just the addiction that you're experiencing with a child or a family member.
Very good. I love that. Good. Well, thank you for tuning in with us, everybody. We are so happy you came and listened as we talked about navigating the holidays. We're going to be back in the future with more topics and different speakers as well. And just feel free to send us a note if you'd like, and let us know what you'd like to discuss. And we hope that you can find some peace and some joy during this holiday season.
People
Thank
get better.
you.
They do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.